is different relationships to fear within our spiritual practice. And so far we have looked at the way within the frame of the Sutrayana or Hinayana practice, how we cultivate or we work with fear. And I've introduced it to the RAIN model, practice of recognizing, accepting, investigating, and non-identifying with fear. And then last time we looked at the relationship to fear within the Mahayana, which is using or relating to fear as a possible stepping stone to developing genuine compassion, genuine connection, and we did some Tonglen practice, which is one way to open that possibility, to see all difficult, all challenging emotions, but particular fear as an opportunity. So in today we will move into the Tantrayana, so it's quite quick. And within the Tantrayana, or Vajrayana, we start to develop a very different relationship to fear. So instead of any kind of challenging emotion, any kind of disturbing emotion, we see them as potential allies on the path of awakening. So we explore the possibility to step into the energy within a certain emotion. And we explore the possibility to unpack fear from its disturbing, confused aspect, the pleasure aspect. So we explore the possibility to unpack that and come in contact with the vitality in fear, with the wisdom aspect in fear. And one of the practices, kind of westernized versions of one of the tantric practices within the Tibetan tradition, is a practice developed by Lama Tsutri Malyona, a Western American woman who has founded the Tara Mandala Center in Colorado. And she developed this method of feeding your demons, which is a bit of a mixture between a traditional Tibetan practice, the chill practice, and Jungian shadow work. And so I have been thinking about, so how can I teach this, or how can I, introduce to this in such a short time? And my conclusion was I can't. So not in terms of that I will lead you into the practice like we did with the RAIN model and the Tonglen practice, but so what I would like to do today is to invite you into a meditation, to arrive, to connect, and then one of the first steps within the practice of transforming fear is to get to know fear, to touch fear, to notice it in your body. So I want to invite you in our first meditation into that. And then I will just explain the practice, like kind of a bit of an advertising of a different practice to relate to fear. And while I'm explaining it, usually we also do it a little. I mean, we can't help ourselves. So, and I'm not going to lead you into the practice because it really needs a bit of more time and also possible a bit of personal guidance. So I think it would be a bit irresponsible if I would just, invite you into either a tantric sadhana or a practice like feeding your demons without being in personal contact with you. But I will explain it to you, and then hopefully, if this speaks to you, you can make your own research, and there's possibility to learn this practice in a more profound way as it is possible in 1 hour. So, but let's start with some time of arriving and really entering the temple of our meeting. Kind of this time the tantric temple, the sacred space. Maybe we can look at George's place. So he's just sitting right there in the Pure Land. Here there's not so much, but so yeah, just taking some time to connect with yourself, with your own body, but then also with the group. So if you like, you can close your eyes. And then you take some time to check in, noticing what you bring with you. And possibly there is a sense of entering a sacred space. A sacred space in which we are together, as spiritual friends. Yes, and maybe some of you know how it is to enter a space like this, in the meditation centers or in places of pilgrimage. So there is a sense of that, almost like shifting into a different dimension. And you are welcomed as you are into this space. And part of this process is that you drop from the head into the body, from the doing mode into the being here. And I invite you to bring the breath somewhat into the foreground, lightly. So with the in-breath, you slide into the body, welcoming, embracing. And with the out-breath, letting go of the control freak. So you are shifting gears into present moment awareness. And thoughts become less important. And if you get entangled into the narrative, into the inner dialogue, you just drop back into the spacious aliveness of your body, into the breath, your hands, your belly. The most important thing is a sense of friendliness, a sense of friendship with yourself, with what is happening, softening and opening. And appreciating that we are here together, breathing together. This temple, in this space of our meeting. The in-breath sliding into the body, and with the out-breath softening and opening. And then I like to remind you that whatever you experience right now is an appearance within consciousness, within awareness, like a dream. And into the space of awareness, this shared space where we are together, I call upon the presence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa. And I invite you to call upon your mentors and guides and bodhisattva angels, and call upon them, and they manifest around us. You feel their loving gaze. You hear them. There's a scent of loving kindness. And then you rest. It's like resting in the morning sun, with your whole body just bathing. And everything is welcome. So whatever sensations, thoughts, or feelings arise within you, they arise within loving awareness. and just resting. And only if you find yourself emphasizing the inner dialogue, that you make a gentle movement back to the present moment awareness, to the aliveness of this moment, in your belly, in your hands, and your breath. And relaxing deeply into the presence of Tara or His Holiness the Dalai Lama. With the in-breath sliding into the body if you get entangled. Just being here. So, and then as a first step in the practice of transforming fear, first we need to connect with it. We need to feel, need to approach, move closer to. So I invite you to, in your mind, to bring something which you are scared about. Maybe it's something which is already here, somewhat in the background, or maybe you need to connect conceptually a little with a topic or something happening in your life. And just bring this to your mind and then stay curious about what is happening in your body. Just notice the energy in your body. So where is that energy? Where's the fear? Where you can, where can you feel it in your body? Maybe it's quite localized, so you have a sense that it is somewhere in your body. Maybe it's more vague. But just start to recognize the felt sense of anxiety or fear in your body. While at the same time you stay connected with the sacred temple, with the openness, with the friendliness, with the support of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and other masters. So you touch the fear, but you're also in touch with that which is bigger. So this is one of the skills we learn, is to be intimate with a fear, but without getting overwhelmed. And of course, that takes some time to be able to do that. So notice the non-static, impermanent, flowing nature of the felt sense of anxiety or fear in your body. Stay connected with the earth, with the surroundings. Notice that there's much more happening, so that there's actually a big space of awareness, and that the experience of anxiety or fear is just a little part of it. And get a sense that you are not alone, that there's loving angels around you, that there's healing light around you, that there is so much love. And there's a bit also of experimenting with how much do you want to bring the space into the foreground, and how much can you bring the contraction or the fear or the anxiety into the foreground. And with the in-breath, breathing into, embracing, and then with the out-breath, going into space. So in the Mayana approach, what we do with an experience like now, having some connection with fear, is the realization I'm not alone with this. So to make that step from my fear into a shared fear, our fear, the fear in this group, the collective fear. I'm not alone with this. And the people around me, the people in this group, they have a similar experience, just like me. And then opening your awareness into your surroundings, into the temple of our meeting. Into the compassion and love of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Tara, Shenrezik. And then open your eyes without leaving the seat. Just a minute. I definitely will come back. Sorry, so someone was ringing the doorbell. So. Yes. So one of the messages from the tantric teachings I would really like to share with you is the possibility to relate to one's difficult experiences to some to what we might have a sense that it is something we need to overcome, something we need to apply antidotes to shift our perspective on those, like anxiety, like fear, and to see them as potential allies, to bring some curiosity into it. Yeah. And this is quite a game changer within our practice, because before we might have a sense that there's something wrong with us and there's something wrong with our feelings and that we need to improve, that we need to become different. And then just considering the possibility that all these different experiences, that they have a wisdom aspect, that they have an energy within them, which we can unpack and transform and bring into our life, the energy, the vitality in feelings, particularly anxiety, fear. And there's a lot of practices within the tantric tradition to do that. And I would like to make some advertising or give you a bit of an introduction into the practice of feeding your demons, developed by Lama Tsultrim Alyona. And I will just describe this practice a little. And I kind of invite you to do it lightly while I'm talking about it. I mean, not really doing it, but I mean, no, we have the capacity when we hear stories to kind of live through the stories and experience the story. So that's what I invite you to do. And then if this makes you curious and it makes sense to you, then I encourage you to explore this a bit deeper and to learn this practice. I wouldn't recommend to do the feeding your demon practice on your own. So it's good to do it in a group or have a guidance, at least in the beginning, so that you get familiar with this practice. Because with all these transformative practices, there's always the danger that we re-traumatize ourselves, that we get overwhelmed by the content of our experience. So an instinct in you to kind of avoid certain aspects of your experience might be a healthy thing to do for a while. Yeah? And then if we go into fear, there is the possibility that we put too much onto our plate. And so it's good to be careful and not to do this kind of practices on your own just because they are in a book, but to do it together with others who know this practice. So the first step in the practice of feeding your demon, and you can interrupt me, we're not so many, so if you have a question, just write on the chat or unmute yourself so you can. Yes, so there's a link. So the first step we did in our practice now, and we actually did this first step in the practice of the RAIN model, recognizing, and we did it also in the Mahayana practice of Tonglen. So the first step in this kind of practices is to touch what we don't want to touch, and that's a huge step. So it's really like slowing down and connecting with that which we are scared about. So it's a counter-instinctual first step in this practice. It's what we don't want to do. And actually a lot of our life or in our culture, it's about being busy, not to touch that which is difficult within you. So that's why it's so important to invoke the support of the refuge field, the support of the Lama, the support of the protective deities, and to assume a good posture, to feel safe, and then following that invitation. It's a crazy invitation, but doesn't it make sense to say what you want to heal, you need to touch? Yeah. I mean, internally, but also externally. Yeah, so if there's any sense of inspiration to heal your inner life, to heal your wounding, it really makes sense to start with, yeah, of course, if you want to do something with it, you need to touch it, you need to experience it, you need to open to it. Yeah. And so that's what you do in the practice of feeding your demons also, just similar as we did it. And there's very interesting questions which keep us looking. Yeah? And some of these questions I ask also in the previous sessions, like questions like, is there color? What's the quality of the sensations? Where is it in the body? What shape does it have? And of course, that's amazing, because to become curious about something like fear and anxiety, it's a revolution. It's an internal revolution. So far we thought about what pill to pop to not to feel this, and now suddenly there is that curiosity, like, okay, so is there color? What's the sensation? How would I describe it? Where is it in the body? How old it is? How old is it? Is it young? Is it ancient? So it's like becoming an explorer and this question, they are not meant to kind of be answered or have a correct answer to them. They are really like about looking, and curious. And probably just doing that would make a big difference. Because as you probably heard before, what the Buddha taught is that suffering comes from resisting what is. So resistance and suffering, there's a strong correlation there. So, and less we resist what is happening, less suffering we experience. Not less pain, but less suffering. So already in the initial step of this practice, there might be some sense of more space, a bit of a relief. Yes. So now, in this practice of feeding your demon, the next step is to personify that energy of fear in front of you as a being. And maybe that sounds a bit strange, and if you hear that for the first time, particularly if you think, yeah, I'm not that kind of person, like with symbols and but like let's imagine a bit how fear feels. Yeah, so where it is in the body. I mean, not even very personally, but so. So if you would imagine that kind of energy as a being, how would it look like? And that's what you do in this practice. And probably it's something black with many arms, many eyes, or something like that. Yeah, so that's just what happened. I mean, really like a scary thing. So that's called the demon. And this in itself is an amazing step because you take something which is within you, kind of within you, and you make this step of relaxing the identification with it, and putting it out there. So a lot of people who do this practice, at that moment, they already feel a bit of a relief. Because before that step, fear is an experience of, I am the fear. And often when the fear becomes overwhelming, it seems to have the shape of the body, like you are the shape of the fear. Yeah. And in this practice, it's like you kind of let it go a bit, the strong identification, and you relate to it as something outside. This is an amazing skill to have. Yeah. So you personify and you give your unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, some space to be creative and make it into an image. And then you start a dialogue with that aspect of yourself. Yeah? So you start to have a different kind of dialogue with an aspect of yourself, which is symbolized or personified as this demon. What is our usual dialogue with aspects of ourselves is, I'm ashamed of you, I don't want you to be here, you're not invited. So very often we relate to aspects of ourselves in a judgmental, in a negative way, in a denying way, in a suppressing way. So now, having fear in front of us, symbolized by, I don't know, by some kind of being, it's very personal, it's very different for different kinds of people, what appears. You start to develop a different relationship. And so in the process of the feeding the demon, the question you ask, they are kind of suggested, but so I think we can be creative there. Yeah? So what to ask. Yeah? But I just tell you how it is done in this practice. So the first question you asked, there's one important step here, and that is, in this practice, you change your seat and you become the demon. Yeah? So you answer the question from the point of view of the demon, from the point of view of anxiety. So the questions you ask is, what do you want? And the next question is, what do you really need? So if you now imagine your fear and you feel into your fear, what do you think your fear needs? What does it really need, your fear? What does the fear of your friend, of your mother, of your daughter need? Really need? And in the practice of feeding your demon, you would answer that question from the sitting in the place of the demon, in the place of the fear. Yeah. And in that way, you get that kind of information what a certain aspect of yourself needs. And I guess for most of the time, and I think, if you feel into this, this will be the direction will be into kindness, acceptance, love, care, yeah, compassion. That's the direction usually. What any aspects, any aspect of ourself, any aspect of any hurt aspect of our own inner life and of the inner life of other people, what these aspects need is love in different symbols and different forms and different words. But that's what is needed. That's what the hurt aspects in ourselves need. So, and then you continue this process and you give the demon what he or she needs. And in that process, the demon transforms, changes. So if you imagine a demon symbolizing your fear, your anxiety, and you give that demon, you give her what she needs, and she relaxes, she becomes what she needs, she will change. So the demon changes into an ally. So in this practice, you transform the energy which is stuck in the anxiety, you transform that into energy which is supportive. the vitality in fear, the vitality in anger, the vitality in desire. You transform into an ally. You unpack the feeling of anxiety. You remove the confusion, and the vitality and anxiety becomes available. Yes, and then in the end of the practice, you dissolve the transformed demon into light, and it fills you, and the vitality, the joy, the light in that energy becomes available. Yes, so is there any comment, any question to this practice, in general, to this theme of transforming, of
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've been thinking about feeding your demons and rain.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're very similar.
Yes.
But rain is like a shorter process.
The one is a shorter process.
Or maybe a simpler process. There are so many steps with the feeding your demons, and you shift spaces.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, rain you can just sit with yourself and do.
Yeah, but if you become more like, if you do the feeding the demon process a few times, it becomes also quite straightforward. So it's not very complicated. So let's say I have a fear, I feel it in my body, I allow a symbol to arise in front of me, of my anxiety. I ask, I mean, I don't need to be complicated about the question. I could just ask, so what do you need? Okay, it's always something like love. So I give it, and it transforms into an ally. So it's not very complicated. But it's true, there's like similar principles within these two processes. Yeah.
I think maybe my question is, what's the advantage of one to the other?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe because I'm more comfortable with rain, what's the advantage of
the advantage is that in the rain process, I don't know if it's an advantage, but I think it speaks to different people. So in the rain model, at the end of the process, there's non-identification, kind of nirvana. You are out of it. At the end of the process of the feeding the demon is showing up in the world with the energy of the transformed anxiety. So the aim in the rain model is non-identification. The aim in the feeding the demon practice is to show up in the world with the transformed, with the wisdom aspect of the different afflictive emotions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Alec.
So in the feeding your demons process, you step through the process of symbolizing the fear. And that to me feels like it's really just a process to be able to hold the fear as separate from the self. So you can hold both at the same time.
Mm.
But what I'm watching for myself is there's something in, I don't know what's going on, but there's something in that process that's triggering or actually creating more fear. So, but I'm very comfortable with using it in a non-personified way.
Mm.
So as long, and I can have that dialogue with the negative emotion as separate from myself without the need to personify. So I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts about that.
Yes, that's definitely an option. And that's what you do in the internal family systems therapy, which is a similar system, like, starting a different dialogue with the inner aspects. So it's not necessary to personify. Yeah, I think it's different for different kinds of people. Yes, Philip.
So I'm wondering if the origin of the demon, the origin of the problem, is some lack within oneself. So if, for instance, the problem is fear, and it's ultimately due to a lack of courage, and then you go through the steps and you identify that what the demon wants is in fact what you don't have. Or if the demon is loneliness, for instance, due to essential lack of love, how do you provide what you're already missing, which caused the demon to exist in the first place?
Mm. So the idea in the process feeding demons is that within the demon itself, there is a wisdom aspect. So it's not that you need to get that from somewhere else within you. So by unpacking, by removing the confusion around the demon, that which is needed is within the demon. For example, in anger, the wisdom aspect of anger is clarity, is firmness. So if you work with the demon of anger, you personify anger, that clarity, that firmness, that wisdom aspect is within the demon. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat. I suspect I need.
Somewhat. Yeah, that's good enough, I think.
Thank you.
I have a question. It's so wonderful to be with you, Stephan. So it a little bit like you described, it made me somewhat relieved and happy to visualize this symbol demon. But my question, or what I wish you to comment on, is that it seems to me that it's going to take a long time for that demon to really feel the love and to then liberate the vitality.
Yes, it's definitely not a practice you do once. It's with all these practices. We continue. It's a long process. So we continue to do this practice, and for some people, for some people, it's quite difficult initially to connect with a source of I mean, if there's a sense that the demon, the anxiety needs unconditioned love, then for some people it takes quite a long time to connect into that. How does that feel? How can I give that? I don't have that. So that's where also preparation practices like guru yoga, self-compassion, refuge are so important to prepare ourselves or to build up that capacity to bring wisdom and love into our experience. Yeah. So it's like with the practice of Tonglen, it needs time and exploration and creativity and repeating.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I'd like to share that at the moment I'm connecting to this part of the process where I got the answer of what the demon needs and how he feels when it gets what he needs. And then this, I would say, amazing step to make the decision to feed the demon this feeling. So in my case, for example, to feed the courage he needs. And this shift of not wanting to get in touch with fear into this incredible compassion to feed to this aspect what he needs. At the moment I'm touched by this shift, and maybe that's one of the key things to gain access within myself to this needed aspect, and therefore it is possible to for the demon to change.
Yeah. So a very different relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, usually you don't have the idea to give an aspect of yourself you want try to avoid.
Yes.
To be deeply compassionate and wanting to give everything, the whole to that. And
yes,
at the moment I myself can feel kind of maybe that's what releases within myself, or I can get access to this potential which is within them.
And I think that's like this amazing shift from this view that within the Sutrayana that there's inner enemies, which you need to overcome, which you need to apply antidotes to. And they have names like afflictive emotions or pleasure, or to have that shift into, it's a completely different relationship to your inner life. And I think just that, even if we never like go into formal tantric practice, just that I mean, isn't it wonderful if we feel more comfortable within our own skin, within our own within our own experience, kind of not being suspicious. Oh, there are this things I need to handle, I need to suppress, I need to overcome, I need to hide. Or if some people would notice this aspect in ourselves and they wouldn't love us. To a curiosity and an openness, and to just starting to have a doubt. My shame, my guilt, my anxiety, maybe they are actually not enemies, they are allies. And then, so if we go into tantric practice, then we get methods. I mean, now I talked a bit about the feeding the demon practice, but we have, wrathful deities within the Tibetan tradition, energetic practices like inner fire practices. So we learn different tools to Vajrayogini practice to transform desire. So we learn, we have different tools to actually tap into the energy of these emotions and of these aspects of ourselves, and bringing in, riding on them and using them to show up in the world. And of course, sometimes it's necessary to show up in the world with some firmness, with some no, with some setting boundaries, with some light, with some fire, with some weapons in our hands. Yeah, so it's sometimes not, the smile is sometimes not the best response to a certain situation. Yes, Alec.
Just thinking again of kind of a little bit about the difference between the rain and the feeding of the demons. I'm kind of thinking about this almost as with the rain process, right? There's something like something has gotten stuck in ourselves, and through the rain process, we allow that, and we kind of just, okay, let's just take that out. And then when we take out that piece that's stuck, the energy just continues to flow, right? So it's just in that, it allows that flowing. But with the feeding of the demons, we do that same process, but what we do is we then take that flowing energy and we harness it for a particular intention.
Yes.
So it's that flow versus harnessing. Is that?
Yeah. Yes. Or transforming. Yeah. Like, so yes. Yes. Yes, Rasa.
I have a practical question. It's like when you do feeding a demons practice, it's so the idea is that you like visualize the demon, or we had to draw the demon, and then also to answer the questions, like you said as well. And it's a bit like I don't know, maybe you have to be really like kind of relaxed and open to kind of letting go what you're feeling and what you're thinking. Because for me, it felt a bit like, okay, I have now to draw something, or I have now to answer something. I don't know what should I answer. I don't know. What is it's a bit like, it was a bit like that I have to do something.
Yeah.
How to, do you have any idea how to to make it like to ease it up a bit, like, so it doesn't feel like I have to. It's a bit more natural and not that like a bit like some kind of
yes,
not work, but like some kind of so it won't be like kind of pushed out, but more like natural.
yeah, I think that's this is an important question, because I think many of us, we tend to try to squeeze us into our sadhana, into our practice, kind of trying to do it right. So we are more interested in doing it right and following the steps and being the good boy or the good girl than actually having experiences. And of course, it makes sense to learn a certain sadhana, a certain practice. But then I think it's important to dare to be creative and allow it to develop and to make it your own piece of art, and to integrate, things which you have learned, and also to be authentic or truthful to your own rhythm and to your language and to what kind of sense channels you speak to you. So I think, like for example, some people, they are slow and they really need to feel, and they need to take time, and so that's wonderful. But some people, they can do a feeling the demon in 3 minutes. It's like visualization. What do you want? Okay, so done. Yeah, and that's it's just different kind of ways to do this. I mentioned the internal family system therapy because the guy who developed it, Schwarz is, I think, his name. I'm not sure about that, but he said that in the beginning, when they started to develop this process, they personified the aspect they wanted to communicate with. But then they found out that it's actually not necessary for many people. So that could be an option for you also, Rasa, to try to, maybe it's possible for me to have that kind of dialogue with an aspect of myself, like with grief, with anxiety, or with anger, like kind of directly. Yeah? So just without going through a process of projecting it outside. That's definitely a possibility. So that's my take to sadhanas also. Traditional sadhanas. And, as always, every teacher is partial, so maybe I'm completely wrong here. But for me, it was always more important to have, to give space to my playfulness, to give space to my joy, to give space to my experience, and going for experience, for a taste of these practices, rather than doing it right. And I'm willing to take the negative karma of having done some of my practice, like kind of a bit in a strange way, willing to be corrected, to correct. I'm always willing to correct and adapt. But for me, it's just more important that it makes sense to you, and that I enjoy the practice, and that it makes differences in my life, rather than doing it right. So I mean, I'm doing the feeding the demon practice a lot because it's a beautiful practice for me, and I'm playing around with it. I know exactly how it's done, how Sultan Marione developed it, so I know it, and I've learned it, and I've done it like that. But then at one point, it's time for me to keep it alive and to change it. Yeah, it's like a practice needs to be alive. It needs to. Because I'm changing. So the practice needs to, it's a vibrant piece of art, which is always changing. Yes. It's a bit, I must say, I'm not so satisfied with what I said so far. because it's not easy to really bring across what is happening within the transformation, how that works. I think it's something to experience. It's difficult to. I hope I make you curious, or to. I mean, like maybe anger is a good example of that. Now, if you are very influenced by sutra level practice, then you probably, and also your psychological history, these two things then come together. You might have a sense that anger is a horrible thing in you. Something which is really something, I mean, anger has a very bad reputation within the Sutayana. It's like, I mean, one moment of anger towards a bodhisattva destroys 300 million of positive karma. Yeah, of course, that's all myth. Yeah, I mean, I never understood how people can take this literally. Yeah, but it talks about the power of anger, and then imagine an emotion an emotion phobic culture, and then a family history of a little boy and little girl growing up in a family where anger was a no-go. Yeah, no anger here on this table. So and maybe you have a sense, no? You have a sense of like that, and then starting to change that and exploring the possibility. Hey, maybe actually the vitality, the energy and anger, the clarity, the firmness. I mean, you could almost say in these times that we need to have much more anger. And of course, when I say anger here now, I'm talking about not about hatred. Yeah. So to get a sense of that it is possible within one's own practice to unpack a violent, self-righteous, harmful energy like hatred, hateful anger, into showing up in the world. Protective, saying no, speaking up, protecting the earth, protecting people who are suppressed, who don't have a voice, supporting, you know. I think it's such an inspiring, even just to have that idea or to see that option is so inspiring, even if it takes a lifetime to figure out how. Yes. Is there any? Yes, so maybe I can say something I said in the beginning of this little series. I think it's helpful as a Buddhist practitioner to get a sense that there's different paradigms, different views within the three yanas, yeah? Sutayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, and that they definitely have their place. Yeah, I mean, if you and there's times in our life where we benefit from different kinds of practices, from different kinds of paradigms. But that it's just not the only way to relate to anger, desire, and ignorance, as it is sometimes sold also within the Tibetan tradition, as if the Sutra Hinayana approach to our so-called afflictive emotions is the only one. And still, of course, doing the practices, but understanding the practices related to the Sutayana, but understanding they are a stepping stone, and there's other viewpoints, other practices. Otherwise, you end up through Buddhist practice to support a sense of that there is something wrong with you, a sense of fear, a sense of shame towards feelings, towards emotions. Yes, so let's dedicate and share the positive energy of our meetings. Kind of imagine that there's ripples or light rays going out from this moment, from our hearts of goodness, of healing, into your past, present, and future, to your friends and parents and children. From the virtual temple of our meeting into our countries, over the big ocean. And feeling the support of Lama Zopa Rinpoche and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who do that kind of prayers right now, always, 24/7. Yeah, may this moment, this meeting be a cause for waking up for the benefit of all. Thank you so much. My New Yorker new friends.
Thank you so much, Stephan, and thank you, everyone. This concludes, I guess, our 3-session series on approaching fear. Just a couple of logistical notes. One is if anybody wished to offer virtual kata and dana to support Stephan, I just put a link in the chat area. Of course, thank you for your offerings for these teachings. A good portion of those does go to Stephan to support him. So this would be anything additional only if you wish to make that. And also, some of you may have seen that Stephan will be offering really regular teachings starting from the end of May on the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. There's a link on the chat area. It's a very classic text, which we are sure that Stephan will bring to life so that it may be experienced more as a beneficial piece of art for ourselves. So we're very excited about that. That information is there. And just personally, really wish to thank everyone for coming, for sharing your beautiful energy together. So appreciative. And of course, Stephan, deeply grateful. Thank you so much for taking the time to guide us and to lead us in this very gentle and yet profound way. Thank you.
May all the Buddhas be with you. Bye.
Thank you, Stephan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
And thank you for inviting him to have these teachings. Just wow, incredible. So all the beings who've created that happening, thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for your feedback, Alex. So glad you enjoyed, and always nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hi, Mikkel. Long time no see, but good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How's everything going?
It's good. It's good. I'm doing some therapeutical training right now, so this was just perfect. We're kind of working in the same way, so that was just brilliant. So.
Wonderful. Great. So glad it's useful and beneficial.
How are you doing over there?
Good. It's raining, and which is perfect for meditation. I don't have to feel like, oh, I wish I were out right now. So yeah, everything's good.
Yeah, it's the same here. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
take good care. Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Misha. Bye, Anne.